David detested himself for being always impoverished. He married an elderly woman for her money because he wanted to be wealthy without having to work for it. When she stated this, he was astounded by what he saw. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. David was born into poverty and disliked his life from an early age. His parents put in a lot of overtime to support the family, but their combined pay was insufficient to cover their essential expenses. David was extremely irritated by his family's ongoing financial hardships. Despite their best efforts, it appeared as though nothing ever worked out for them. David was attractive, even if he had little money. Oh my, very, very beautiful. It was as though the world's most attractive individuals got together and resolved to create someone even more gorgeous than themselves. This was a truth about himself that he was constantly arrogant about. David discovered early on that he could have some advantages that he would not have otherwise been able to enjoy because of his appearance. He befriended several people who enjoyed giving him presents. He was able to win over almost anyone's heart as he grew older. Several girls would frequently approach him, but he never invited them to his home. He knew that if they found out he was from a low-income family, they would no longer respect him. He was so anxious to get out of his parents' dilapidated and unsightly home. Thus, he moved out of his parents' home as soon as he reached 18 and into the home of a friend. He was able to make a few bucks a month working at a pub. David enjoyed being away from home for a little while. He relished the accompanying freedom. He quickly discovered, though, that being alone didn't always translate into happiness. Life remained difficult and demanding. David went to his own apartment, a loft on the opposite side of town, and lived there after working for a few months. He was able to secure employment in a table water plant there. Compared to the previous one, it offered somewhat better working conditions and a little higher compensation. But soon after starting this employment, he came to the conclusion that earning a wage was not what he was meant to do. Since his pay didn't cover him for more than a week, he was forced to borrow money to get by for the remainder of the month. But the explanation is not implausible. David led a lavish lifestyle. He would frequently attend pricey events and frivolously spend money on jewelry and technology. He appeared to be making an effort to show everyone that he was not as impoverished as his parents. Sadly, this way of living left him destitute and penniless. His mental state quickly began to suffer as a result of his financial situation. He began arriving late for work and was unable to complete duties that were given to him. His sole source of income was terminated when the firm eventually had enough of his appalling attitude toward work. He was ejected from his flat since he was unable to pay his rent due to his lack of income. Upon asking his pals whether he might remain with them, he was met with rejection. If they let him stay, his pals worried that his bad lifestyle and sloth would spread. David was forced to go back to his parents' house at this moment. He had not realized how bad it would be. His only thought since the day he moved back in was how he was going to get out. He would stop at nothing to return to his opulent lifestyle, which he so much wanted. At that moment, he recalled Agatha, the wealthy acquaintance of one of his buddies. She was a widow, having inherited his whole fortune after her husband passed away following a brief illness. The woman had assets all throughout the nation that continuously brought in money for her, and she was worth millions of dollars. At 80 years old, Agatha was a grandmother to 3 children and 6 grandchildren. David thought that she would be his key to regaining access to the major leagues, as she was lonely without her spouse. The strategy was straightforward. He would win her affection and marry her in order to obtain her estate once she passed away. What a brilliant move! David got to work planning right away. He observed her movements and was familiar with her usual haunts. He planned to run into her by mistake one day. David had a natural ability to win women over, and he gave Agatha his all. Agatha was no different from everyone other he had seen to fall prey to his charms and stunning looks. She found it hard to accept that a young, attractive man would show love interest in her. What could this man possibly see in her when she thought she was old and wrinkled? She quickly gave up on this, though, and began to thank her stars that she had met such a gentleman in David. He knew how much she liked them, so he took her on romantic outings, bought her flowers, and made sure she always had chocolate. With all the attention, Agatha felt delirious. David asked her to marry him 2 months after their first encounter, and she accepted. David then expressed his love for her. David was ecstatic. At last, all of his hard work was paying off, and he would soon be enjoying the fruits of his labor. They were joined in marriage in a modest ceremony that took place in an outlying church. Not even Agatha's kids were present for the wedding. They opposed getting married. The priest and the marriage witness were the only individuals in attendance. Agatha was clearly disturbed by this, so David reassured her that pure love required no audience, and she accepted his words. David moved into Agatha's mansion that day, and the two of them started living together as husband and wife. David also started getting ready to persuade her to amend the will to his advantage. Even the ones that would have gone to her kids, he wanted them all. They were all prosperous and doing well after all. He would pilfer every last coin, leaving them with nothing at all. David attempted to bring up the will as the months passed, but she would invariably divert the conversation. He had to play this game clever since he couldn't be honest with her, because she would assume that he was really her money all along. He was a good husband, taking good care of his wife at this period. Given her advanced age, he drove her anywhere she desired to go, brought her to the hospital for regular exams, and even picked up cooking so he could make her some fresh meals. With the touch of a finger, he could give her with anything at all. He resembled an exalted babysitter, with the exception that he was wed to her. When she became ill a year after they were married, things really started to get serious. He was still not successful at this point in convincing her to leave him anything that she possessed. In any case, he accepted that he would receive nothing from her since he was positive that the sickness would claim her life. Rather, he would settle for the inheritance he would receive as her spouse. Even though it accounted for over half of her total wealth, that was still a substantial amount of money. He went to see her one day at the hospital, but a security officer stopped him just as he was going to enter her private ward. He responded in a kind tone, "I'm afraid you can't go in there, sir." David became agitated. "Are you crazy? By what do you mean? I must see my spouse." The guard gave him a sly smile. "Sir, this patient is not married. After her husband passed away, her kids said they didn't want others to see their mother." "What are you talking about?" stated David. Before he could continue, 3 security guards came up and escorted him outside. David was stunned and perplexed. What was taking place? What had gone wrong for him? When he visited the hospital early the next day, he was dismissed once more. On the 3rd day, he went and was at last granted permission to meet Agatha. "Hi, Agatha. You were sorely missed. The insane dudes refused to allow me in." He held her hands for a brief while and remarked, "It's so hard without you." Agatha said nothing. She then let out a loud, prolonged laugh that lasted for almost 3 minutes. David instantly got out of bed because he was so terrified. What makes this so humorous? His heart was pounding as he said, "Why are you laughing?" Agatha called him a huge idiot just now. She went on to tell him that she had known all along that he was just with her for her money. She needed the diversion and had played along since she was lonely. She also made the decision to step it up a level after realizing how helpful he was around the house. She also disclosed that their union was a fraud. She had even paid for a witness, and she had cast a homeless guy in the role of a priest. David was astounded by what he heard. Though he wanted to cry, the tears refused to flow. It had all been for nothing. All the work he had put into making this work. He had been duped. He was utilized by Agatha. Well, he was going to utilize her first anyhow. David was beyond repair. Without further remark, he left the hospital and went back to his parents' house. He realized that such a fast-paced life would only do harm to oneself. He had to follow the correct path if he wished to become wealthy. He was therefore going to begin improving himself. Then perhaps he would prevail in this fight with poverty, or perhaps not. How would you rate Agatha's handling of the situation? Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.